Just relax. And now imagine you are in the position, or maybe you already have been in the position, of being a parent. You just gave birth, or you have received your very first child. And you're now in this position of nurturing this child. You give it all your love. You give it what you think is best for it. So in the beginning, obviously, besides all the love and the touch that you give the child, you want to make sure it gets the right nutrition. So what is the first thing that comes to your mind? What is the right nutrition? It is obviously breast milk. Exactly. So you pass this stage, perhaps the infant grows teeth now, and maybe slowly you want to transition into more solid food. And now think of it. You have this little infant, so sensitive, so open. What food would you naturally introduce? Is it bread or pizza? Or is it a piece of apple or banana or grape?
Cold sweet potato.
Fine. But it's obviously not McDonald's. It's obviously nothing in that direction. So I like to see this entire topic that way. I always ask myself, like, how would I nurture a little baby, a little child? What kind of food would I like to give it to them? And why do I not feed myself that way? Right? Why? So this is this entire topic. You can come back and open your eyes. Food density reduction, but actually overall it is density reduction. It is not necessarily only food. By the way, this stuff is not in your book. So you don't have to look in the book. It is all about getting lighter from that density. You know, the word human, actually, if we would write it the correct way, is human, which means light being, which basically means that we are nurtured and sustained by cosmic rays, by energy, by prana, by breath, right? So this is always our first source of nutrition. Maybe later. Thank you. Elimination versus consumption. I'm going to keep it very short today because we don't have much time, and this is a topic I could talk for 10 hours. So I like to see everything in these two ways. We have elimination and we have consumption, right? And it's always a good idea to have the correct balance. So it is better to have a more effective elimination than the consumption patterns, right? The elimination patterns that we incorporate are more important than what we consume. You know, that's why spiritual purification works. Because on that day, we are in elimination on all levels. We are in silence. That means we are eliminating our mind. We are not consuming thoughts through language, through whatever. We are getting rid of it. The same with our energetic body when we do the practices with the elements, right? And obviously, food, the fasting aspect, is one of the elements. So, for me, it is so much more important that this is higher than this. Okay? In general, not just food. Because if we have this higher than this, we have so much crap within ourselves, there's no space. And, you know, in terms of food, I always say nothing tastes as good as shitting fields, you know. So, like, or sweating, or any other form of detoxification feels good. It's say what?
Exhaling.
Exhaling, yeah. So important. And you know, when we have this higher, we become more dense. Dense in our physical body, in our physical structure, but also anything else becomes more dense. If we're having this higher, and it doesn't really matter at this point what we are eating, I'm not going into that right now, but if this is higher than this, we become more dense, more dense, more dense, and that leads to a denser mind, denser thoughts, denser energetic body, denser life situations, denser manifestations. It all goes hand in hand. So, for example, there are a few foods, you know, that are increasing this, and there are foods that they are increasing that. So, for example, if we are consuming heavy foods like bread, gluten, meat, dairy, coffee, things that are very stimulating, they take a long time to exit the body. You know, there's a list where they say gluten takes 3 to 4 months to get out of the body, you know. That's a long time. Sugar, 2 weeks, coffee, 3 weeks, alcohol.
Coffee speeds up elimination, though.
Say it again?
Coffee speeds up elimination.
No, that's a myth. It actually, it's a toxin basically, and that's why
What about glutathione as transferase in caffeine that's used to detoxify the liver in the Jersey Institute and all over the world?
we will have later time for questions. Okay, thank you. So the best thing that we can do without changing too much in our life is this simple rule. And one of the things that we all have experienced it now, you just came out of it yesterday, I hope so at least, is that you were fasting. So when we fast, we give our body, mind, and the entire system rest, right? It's quite logical. If we are full of food in our system, it takes a lot of energy. Energy that we could use mentally, spiritually, or wherever else. You know, our intestines are, how long? Like 26 feet. That's long, you know. And meat, for example, stays that long in there, it rots, you know. It doesn't go out fast. Where when we eat nothing, or foods that are very light and hydrating and supportive for the elimination, like fruits, and in general like water-rich foods like vegetables, raw, it supports the elimination, all right? And I think fasting is so good because we learn independency, self-sufficiency, and food freedom ultimately. You know, like if you truly believe that you have to eat 3-4 times a day, you're not free. You're not. If you think you cannot fast for a day or 2 or 3 or a week and you will die, you're dependent on it. But like ultimately the goal is over time to become less dependent on these things. And there is obviously a catch, right? Because if we go too much in the elimination process, too fast with unhealthy thoughts, with thoughts that are coming out of lack, we are still coming from very dense thoughts, right? So it's counterproductive to go in this entire process too fast with the wrong intentions. This is why there is failure for some people. It is because the intention is not correct. There is no organic unfolding. It's like it becomes an addiction or obsession to get clean, to get light, instead of it's just natural comes to you, you know. For me, it was like that. When I did the rebirthing 2019, I was already plant-based, but naturally I just couldn't hold the density anymore. So naturally I gravitated to a fruit-based diet. There was no, oh, I have to do this because I'm toxic or because I have fecal matter inside of me. That came later on, that information, that knowledge, and it was good to have that knowledge, but the inspiration came naturally. So I think this is very important, that when we feel inspired to go this path, to do it gradually and with the right intentions. And, you know, let's come back to that intestine, the intestine within us. Not just are they very long and hold and absorb foods for a very long time, but also they, depending on our diet and depending on our lifestyle, since birth basically, we hold a lot in the intestines. So the average person, and this is no joke, holds 5 to 8 kilograms of fecal matter in their intestines. So the weight that you put when you go on the scale and you weigh yourself, yeah, it's your body weight, but there's a lot of stuff that is invisible. And anyone who has done a long fast or juice feast or whatever kind of detox method has experienced that. I did a 90-day juice feast a few years ago, and I was still having solid bowel movements on day 70. It was old, nasty stuff, and you can smell it and see it. So it's like we hold a lot since birth, depending on how we grew up, depending what our parents fed us, you know, depending on what we eat right now. So there are certain foods, right, that stick to our bowels, stick to our intestines, and they basically suck us dry. They're very dehydrating for our system. And our body is 90%, maybe even more, water, right? And water is electricity. So if we become more dry, we age, we get wrinkles, we get gray hair, etc., and we lose electricity. We become less conductive. We are becoming less human, the light being that we actually are. Yes, so when we go on this journey of elimination higher than consumption, we're going to face a few challenges that we have to be aware of, because we eliminate a lot of density from our system that has that created in a way our being, how we think, how we behave, our mood, our emotions, everything. So when we go on this journey, we basically go through healing crises, because we eliminate the physical stuff, but the physical stuff also has energy attached to it, emotions attached to it. So when we go through detoxification, we go through emotional detox. We go through traumas that were connected to certain food, you know. Like we had a situation in our life where we felt really shitty. We were very emotionally charged because of whatever, and we suppressed it with food, right? Because that's the number one drug on this planet, and it's legal, you know, in all kinds of ways, weird ways, you know, very strange ways where we consume. So also trauma release is connected to that, and it's something to be aware of, because we need the strength and the courage to keep going, you know, and someone maybe who supports us if we really go on this journey. Then I wrote something very interesting here that might be confusing, but food actually doesn't equal energy. And I know it may seem like it, and it does. It does and it doesn't. Because it depends on our density level, right? If you're very dense, we need the stimulation of the food. Classic example, if you are like drinking regularly coffee, and you stop the coffee, you're gonna have less energy. So does that mean the coffee gives you energy? No. The coffee actually takes energy off you and it stimulates your system. And the same goes with any food, and take this with a grain of salt. You know, we don't have to become extreme, but there's foods that are very, very stimulating. You know, like the SOS rule, everything that has salt, oil, and sugar, like industrial sugar, is very stimulating. You know, it's addictive. All right, so as I said, there are foods that improve elimination, and there are foods that worsen elimination and increase deterioration. Because I don't believe in aging, you know, and that goes with the physical mortality. I'm not going into that right now. But I don't believe that we are aging, but we are deteriorating from a very young age, actually. I think if we would have the right fuel from the beginning on, our phases would be way longer. Our infancy would be longer, our toddlerhood would be longer, our childhood, teenagerhood, everything would be way more extended. And it's actually, there are people who are having fruitarian children and they're having a way slower development, which is not a bad thing. It's actually coming back how it should be. We are like developing way too fast and aging fast, right? So just very simple, because I'm not going to go too deep into it. There's the law of homeostasis. So that law says that we have a certain amount of frequency, energy, and then there are foods or other things, doesn't have to be physical food, that either increase or decrease or neutralize our energy. So this entire thing is measured in angstroms. It's like, that's the unit. So for example, the body, if it's like an average body, it doesn't mean a healthy body, right? An average person in the city, let's say, their energetic frequency in angstroms is 6,500. So that's like...
Is that like megahertz?
Angstroms.
Okay,
It's a unit.
I've seen these obvious measurements
Right.
in megahertz.
I think it's different. It's different, yeah. So that's us, let's say, with 6,500 if we're healthy. If we're sick, it's way low, you know, way lower. And then we have foods that are higher, for example, fruits. Raw, ripe fruits. They have a frequency of, let's see, 8,000 to 10,000. So it's already higher than ours, of the average human, because the average human is not healthy and is eating not really good stuff. Or raw vegetables, they are even higher. They have 8,000 to 9,000. And then we have foods that are actually taking energy and that are toxic. Again, take that with a grain of salt. I don't want to go too deep with it. But pasteurized milk, for example, has 2,000 angstroms. Cheese, 1,800. Cooked meat, or meat in general, 0. So that's pretty much all we have to realize, that there are foods that are taking and foods that are giving, or at least not harming ourselves. That's how I will see it. It's not about foods, like I choose foods that are not harming to me. They're not necessarily, I don't really need them, to be honest, because I have done a lot of stuff and I've been dry fasting for 6 days, and you know, I know how I can feel without any food. It really depends on the density and just like how you want to live, you know. I personally, even though I know it's real, but I don't think I want to be a breatharian in this lifetime, just because I enjoy eating fruit. But I know it's possible, and I know that this is actually our natural state. Because once you have experienced this, it might be difficult to live in a city that way, but in terms of spiritual enlightenment and experience, there's nothing that comes closer to that. Together with a healthy mind, obviously, healthy emotions, rebirthing, breathing, it all goes very well together. Okay, so then we have, I made that up actually, but I like it, from EEP, emotional energy pollution, to EPP. So EPP is energetic purging process. So when we go on this journey, our energetic output, right, what we eliminate, is higher than our input, what we consume. That results in a higher energy, in a higher frequency, but it comes together with the urge to have a higher input again, to have other distractions again, right? So, for example, if I'm on a dry fast, I feel good, I have a higher energetic output, but I mind the first thing that I want is like hydration. I want to drink something. Then, after this is fulfilled, I want to have some fruit. I don't even want to go in any other direction because I want to guard my senses in any way, not just food. Like, I don't want to listen to a certain amount of frequency, you know, for example, music or clubs or whatever it is. I don't want to put myself in that frequency. Or I don't want to be around people that are very negative, that are very dense and heavy. And the same goes with food. I just want to guard my senses. Therefore, I eat foods that are not stimulating and not harming me. Just naturally, it just comes. Okay. And of course, we're gonna feel that way because it's unfamiliar and different. It's the emotional detox that we experience when we go from this to this. You know, on the Spiritual Purification Day, when you're first time in silence ever, it's very unfamiliar. And in a way, you want to fill the void with something. Okay. So, then, what foods, like what to eat and when to eat, and then I finish this food thing. Foods that are not harming us are fruit. Fruit and raw vegetables, because they are still in their natural state, they are not altered, they are not processed. They are alive. It makes sense, no? If I want to be alive, I want to eat alive, living foods. It's like the lifestyle that we're having. For most people, it's actually a death style. Because they're consuming only death. They're only consuming high processed foods. And dead foods. So, fruits and vegetables, you know. And you don't even have to go that far. You don't even have to. But I would personally recommend to, first things first, eliminate meat out of my system, because it has the least energy, and it is the biggest obstruction for our system. It's very difficult to handle for our system because our physical body is not a carnivore structure. We're not a lion. I want to see you hunting something without any gear. I want to see it. You know, it's going to be interesting. We don't have the claws, we don't have the teeth, we don't have the entire system is not made to consume flesh. Where our physical body, even though I don't believe that we are coming from monkeys, but our DNA is over 98% of a chimpanzee. So, okay, that's probably the best food choices I can make if I eat anything, right? But you don't have to go, okay? A plant-based diet is alright. It's alright, you know. You do a lot in terms of emotional energy pollution, in terms of health. You can live a very, very long age, I believe. Probably beyond 150 if you're having the mind in check. I mean, even the medical science said that our heart is made to be like 120, you know. If they say that, I mean, you can probably calculate 50 years on top of that. But, yeah, so then I would recommend to eliminate seeds, any kinds of seeds, and dairy. If you want to have dairy, if you really, really want to have dairy, consume it raw and from a very good source, but even then, it's still pus. It's still baby cow's milk. You don't go if you want to have milk to your aunt and ask for a sip of milk, don't you? Like, we don't do that. We're the only species who's confused about that. But let's finish this here. And I want to go really brief, because we don't have much time, to hydration. Obviously, if we consume a lot of fruits and raw vegetables, we are doing a lot for our hydration already, because they are not dehydrating us, right? If we consume chips or crackers or bread, how much hydration is in that? 1%, you know? So it makes sense that we consume these foods, because we still have to poop 70% of water, otherwise we would poop rocks and it would be very painful. It still has to be 70% of water. So if we consume anything that is less than 70% of water, a banana, for example, is 70%, it's on the edge. It takes water from our system. It takes water from our organs, from our skin, from anywhere, from our cells, which lead to dehydration. So dehydration is the biggest cause of disease, together with EEP, you know. It's just a physical manifestation of that. So hydration is crucial, and what is the best hydration? It's structured, living water. It's water that is distilled. Because distilled means nothing else than pure. Distilled water is pure water, which we are very fortunate to drink right now. This beautiful spring water that is still not distilled yet, though. It is better than any tap water or bottled water that you can get, but it still is not distilled. So what I
drink distilled water, but it's not alive.
I'm just coming to that. It is alive. It doesn't need to be. It is alive. It's a lie.
Would believe to have.
I would
love to have this.
Yeah. So tap water or spring water, depending on how hard the water is, right? We all have heard about hard water, right? If we live in the city and stuff, it's full of hard and calc and fluoride and chlorine and all these minerals and substances that are not just calcifying our pineal gland especially, right? The connection to our human being, the connection to a source, but also it's full of inorganic minerals. You know, we have to understand that, and I know it's a biggie for most people, because we never heard it. And actually in school, I remember when they told me in chemistry, they told me the opposite. They said, if I'm consuming distilled water, I'm going to die, because it leaches minerals. That's what they told me. But the truth is, yes, it leaches minerals, it does that, but it leaches inorganic minerals. That's very important to understand, because normal water is full of inorganic minerals, like basically microscopic rocks, right? It has iron and magnesium and what else not, that comes from a rock structure. It's microscopic, but it's still a rock. No matter how much I grind it, it's still a rock. And we cannot utilize rocks. You know, we cannot. So the consequences of that long term, I mean years, decades, the consequences of inorganic minerals are calcified joints that eventually lead to arthritis, gray hair, wrinkles. It's our lifestyle and the way of the kind of water that we consume. And of course it goes hand in hand with the food, because the food, the fruit and the vegetables have living structured waters. The tree is a distiller machine, right? It takes water from the earth and it distills it through the trunk and all the branches, gives it to the fruit, and the fruit is pure water, living, structured, distilled water. And nature always creates new water in a distilled way, right? Nature, when it creates new water, it's always distilled. Rainwater if it didn't get polluted through chemtrails and whatever it is there in the atmosphere, it would be distilled, it would be pure, right? So nature doesn't create other water. It's always distilled, it's always pure, and it's safe to drink. I'm drinking distilled waters for over 5 years, and I'm still alive. And it's actually hard for me to drink other water because I feel the density, I feel it's almost hard to swallow, you know? It's like basically swallowing water with sand in my mouth, you know? Like, because my senses are more sensitive, right? I guard my senses. So I would recommend to either drink the very best spring water that you can, like this for example, because it's still, even though it's not fully distilled, but it has less. I have a measure instrument and I have it with me and I measured the water and it has, I don't know, let it 70 parts per million. So that's like the unit they measured, the particles in the water. And I'm pretty sure that the spring water here is also pretty clean of chemicals, right? I don't think that there's much in there. I think it's pretty pure. So this water is very good. And I personally have a distiller machine. You can get that for 70 euro on Amazon. And it distills the water for you. And then, of course, fruit juices, vegetable juices, coconuts, any juice from a living structure, a living being is distilled water. And urine is another form of distilled water. And I'm not going too deep into that because that's a whole other topic. But urine is distilled water because our human body is a distiller machine basically. We are distilling our own waters and it's the water of life. That's all I can say. So, that's it. This is what I want to share about. And I try to keep it brief and concentrated. But the message I want to give you is to, in general, reduce the density. And food is just one aspect, right? It's just one little thing. We have to see it holistically.
Elimination.
Okay, now questions, all right.
Yeah, just quickly. I love the way you presented that elimination is more potent in the formula than the consumption. Most people don't realize how many toxins we make ourselves in our own body, the endogenous toxins, and they are actually considered more dangerous than the external toxins that we exist in. And I just like the caveat of like the middle piece being the absorption, like the bioavailability of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like when those two things are really harmonious, you can actually get the goodness from
Right.
raw foods or whatever
Right.
you're taking, because if those two things are out of whack and your digestive system isn't optimized, you have very poor
Absorption.
uptake.
Absorption,
So
yeah.
therefore, you can keep eating the right things and keep trying, but
Yeah.
until that heart is harmonious, like you said, what you consume becomes less and less
Right.
powerful.
Right.
And then I just would add one other thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I've been doing
Go
this
ahead.
As well for a long time. That raw foods are really, really powerful when you are powerful, but they are not actually able to bring you from a low density to a high density if you're unwell in your gastrointestinal tract. You need to first heal that so that you can get, that's a fabulous way.
Yeah.
But actually the way we studied was that you also heal it, like you said, as you would give a baby, or like an old granny, because you wouldn't give them like a Buddha bowl, because
Right.
they just don't have the capacity yet for the digestion. So first you heal the digestion with the element of fire, like you're so connected to, by adding that to the food first, so that it's almost like pre-digested. We use cooked food.
Good
that
point.
has the fire first, the active
Yeah.
first, as an assistance. Then we slowly with fasting and gentle baby cooked food, heal the ability to make that perfect union between what we consume and what we are able to uptake and able to eliminate, like optimized, so that we can then know through our intuition where to go for our highest nourishment. And if it works for your constitution to be, and your environment, because eating raw food in the middle of winter in Siberia
Exactly.
isn't the right thing to do. But
Exactly.
if you're living free in the mountains of Samothrace,
Right.
then absolutely, and you're already like optimized, then you can really go into those high vibrational states. But you cannot heal the body with raw food.
You can heal your body with raw
We can
food.
agree to disagree.
Yeah. Fruits are very powerful, okay? Fruits
Not when you're
are the highest powerful food that there is. So it's kind of get uncomfortable if you are very toxic. Because the more toxic you are, the less you can handle fruit, the less you can handle the sun, etc. But it's a good point that she said, because it's a gradual change. You know, and again, like goes way deeper, right? It starts with consuming less mucus-forming foods, right? Leaving away all the mucus-forming foods. And then concentrating on the mucus-free foods that can be cooked, if it's a vegetable or even a fruit or a salad or a sweet potato, right? They are less mucus-forming. But yeah, it's correct. It's correct. It depends on our environment, it depends on the situation, it depends on many things.
Yeah, something I'm realizing here is that my experience is going to be really hard to get that inspiration that you're talking about in a city. It's probably not going to happen for the average person in the city, the natural inspiration, but when we're in nature, it becomes very intuitively.
Right.
It's like the food can feel like a block between you and your environment. Whereas in the city, everything is so dense already that it feels like you need it almost to protect yourself from the environment.
It's your choice, right? It's always our choice, like the way we live. We can live in nature if we want to. But also here, even if we live in the city, we can do simply this. You know, increase the elimination, and it doesn't have to be only food. It can be going more into the sauna, doing more movement. Just that we open up the elimination channels higher than this. Okay? And we have to understand that our body is always trying to detoxify 24/7. If the body wouldn't do this, we would be already dead. Right? So every night when we go to bed, we do a dry fast. This is why it's so important how we breakfast, if we have any breakfast. Because we become out of such a intense, strong detox. And if we break it with bacon and bread, boom. Like, yeah, you're really breaking your fast hard. But, you know, it's gradually. We can do little things and increase that. That's all, you know. Yeah.
Can you name some of the other elimination channels that we
Right.
use?
So, exhale. 70% of detox is breathing. Skin, I would say, is the second. Because
What do you say the second?
skin. Or skin.
Meaning what?
The skin is our largest organ, right?
So like,
The pores. Every pore in our body is a lung.
right, but I mean like, what can we do with the skin to help him? Like, is that?
Sauna,
Okay.
sweating. Sweating is very important. Exfoliating, dry brushing, palida, slapping yourself. I don't know, like just increase these, open up the pores.
Salt, mud, clay.
Right, scrubs, you know, these kind of things. And the next elimination is obviously through our poop, right? That's the other one. Urine is not elimination, but I'm not going into this right now.
We want you to.
What's the measurement tool that you use to test your water? And also, I'm curious. It seems like you prefer fruit versus veg, and obviously you're
Right.
consuming a very high amount of natural sugars. Just
Yeah.
wondering if you can talk about that.
So what was the first one? Oh, the measurement.
Yeah, what's the measurement tool?
I don't know how it's called, but it measures the parts per million
Of what?
of the water.
What, how many parts of water there are?
How many parts of particle parts are in the water? And yeah, I eat mainly fruit because fruit has the highest energy, fruit has the highest hydration, and fruit is the easiest to go through. Right? Like an apple goes very quick through your system. And we need the sugary, right? Because like the natural sugar, because our body runs on sugar. Our brain runs on sugar. Natural sugar. That's why I mainly eat fruit, yeah.